Hey, welcome to Ask a Dog podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Sanchez. I am your host for today. I'm a family medicine doctor. Ask a Dog podcast was inspired by coronavirus. Due to a lot of the lack of really well done information out there, there was a lot of just miscommunication, misunderstanding. So my hope is through this podcast, as well as this YouTube show, that we will to provide information that you can rely on. And so, hey, let's get back into it. So today, we're going to talk about coronavirus, the vaccine. Yes, the vaccine. So it has been a lot of talk. Sadly, the coronavirus vaccine has been thrown into politics, and that makes for just some ugly misunderstanding. And so today we're going to talk about whether we should do it or not. And so this week, in fact, today is going to be December 10th. And the FDA is having a discussion as to whether we should do this thing called an emergency use authorization. So what is an emergency use authorization, and should I trust this? And so now, if you're wondering at whether you're going to have to raise your sleeve and get your vaccine tomorrow, and if you're not in the high-risk category or healthcare, you're not going to get it. And that's good and bad. So let's talk about what a emergency use authorization is. And and also how they did these trials. And so how could they, how is it possible to get a vaccine that normally takes 10 years and get it done in 1 year? All right, so let's get into it. So the thing about the vaccine is that it has gone through. Normally it will go through rigorous trials, and it has gone through, but there are 3 phases of this trial. There's phase 1, which is typically small groups, phase 2, and then phase 3. And incrementally, you're increasing the number of people that are enrolled in this trial, and also you're enrolling people, particularly in phase 3, people who are elderly and who may not necessarily be as well, which is a good thing because we want to make sure that this vaccine is safe for all people. And the way that this vaccine has actually been able to get up to speed so quickly is because they, instead of waiting for phase 1 to complete, and then once you do phase 1, you go to phase 2, and then when you go from phase 2 to phase 3, and that's like normally what is done. But in today's world, because we need to actually just go ahead and ramp that up, before phase 1 is completed, they start phase 2 trials. Before phase 2 is completed, somewhere in the middle, they start phase 3 trials. And now we are in the middle of phase 3 for 2 vaccines, so Pfizer, Moderna. And those vaccines have not completed phase 3 trials. They have gone through rigorous statistics and evaluation, but they have not completed phase 3. These are people that are actually, the real people are in these trials to see if they are safe or not. And so is that so you might be like, well, hold on. So they're giving an authorization to a vaccine that hasn't been proven to be safe yet? Well, so there's this thing called interim analysis. So that's a long word for basically like in the middle of an analysis. In the middle of a trial, they look at, hey, is this thing safe or not? Is it effective or not? And they looked at the interim analysis, and they're saying, hey, this is a good thing. Now, imagine, here's the thing though, like there are emergency use authorizations for other reasons. Right? So like say that maybe like there is a life-saving type of chemo treatment or cancer treatment that has the potential to save lives from those who are the most ill. And you're that person who might have that cancer and would potentially benefit. You could apply for an emergency use authorization. I'm sure there's a different name for that situation. But under compassionate uses, we do provide medications that have yet to finish their completion of trials. This is not a new thing. And so that's a very compassionate thing. The thing is that we are trying to balance out the risks and benefits, because the risk of waiting until all of phase 3 is completed is that there are people who would have been saved from coronavirus and whose lives would have been saved that that otherwise would die if we decided that not to utilize the emergency use authorization. And so that is why I'm sure that there are people who are saying, well, I'm not willing to get the vaccine until I know 100% sure that it's safe. And if you're that person, it's okay, because like you can't get the vaccine anyway, even if you wanted it. And so the first line of people, the ones that I don't understate this. What I'm about to say has some very profound impact, very profound. That our healthcare system is very much at threat of like being demolished by this COVID thing. Let me explain this and why the vaccine is going to be for healthcare individuals, and then also for like the elderly who are in hospital care. So hospitals, they are accustomed to being overwhelmed with like people being sick. I have worked in a hospital back when I was in residency, out in Temple, Texas. I remember where the hospital was like 100% of capacity with just people that are sick, right? Because like it's a large hospital and it was bad flu that season, and we can handle that. We can handle being overwhelmed by illness, by a lot of people being sick from different causes, different reasons, right? It's not new to us of just being like so busy and so overwhelmed. It's just kind of comes with the game, or not with the game, but it comes with the territory. But the difference this time is that we have a virus that could potentially kill nurses and doctors. And let me tell you that nurses and doctors and nurses, we're not like the picturesque, perfect picture of health. I mean, you would think otherwise, right? You're like, you're in healthcare, you should be healthy. Well, except that like we're too busy often to like caring for you people for health to like pay attention to our own health. I mean, I try my best, right? So, but like, you know, we're not in the best health. Same thing with like respiratory therapists, physical therapists, and we're very busy hustling to help people. In the process, we may not be taking our health as seriously as we should. As a consequence, there will be multitude of nurses and doctors who will die from coronavirus without the vaccine, who will die. And so we are already short-staffed as it is, right? Nursing, for example. There's not enough doctors, there's not enough nurses. We're short-staffed even without a pandemic. You introduce a pandemic that will start to eat away and erode through those who are able to help you. Mind you, it takes a very long time to become a doctor, by the way. I don't know if you know this or not. It takes a very, very long time. I mean, you commit like a whole decade of your life just to learning. And it's not like we can just kind of like open the floodgates and have like warp drive applied to like physicians. Like you can't do that. You can't do warp drive with like raising up a whole like fleet of physicians. And so when the population of physicians declines because we start dying off and the nurses start dying off, respiratory therapists start dying off, then who's going to take care of people, right? Who's going to be able to take care of the sick, who are people who are dying? And that's something that I am kind of concerned about as a system. And so we really need to maintain the frail system that we have with healthcare, and that is why people in healthcare, and I'm not first line, I'm going to be probably second line, right? So it's going to be ICU doctors, ICU nurses, ER physicians, those who are really in the trenches, right? So like I'm in the front lines, but I'm not in like the trenches. And then it'll come to me next. And so the thing is that like, because there's a lot on the line, not only for the life of physicians and their nurses, but the thing is though is that there's a lot on the line in terms of a system of people who can be able to handle this pandemic. And for that reason, the risk and benefit of knowing that there's a vaccine out there that has yet to complete phase 3 trials, but as of now we think that it is safe, you kind of have to call it. You have to, as FDA, you have to say like, we're at a breaking point. We're at a breaking point. We have something that potentially can help. it's kind of like, it very is almost like similar to the whole cancer situation, right? When there's like our last ditch effort and there's like this potential breakthrough treatment that could save someone's life for cancer. And so like we can't be picky. There's rigorous what do you call it? Processes in place. But it's like under special circumstances, the FDA is willing to say, under this circumstance, we're going to go ahead and start providing the vaccine, though it has not completed phase 3. It's completed enough safety to say that we're going to provide it, right? So now to elderly patients, it's kind of the same situation. I mean, the time is running out. We just went through Thanksgiving and we're having now like a spike, and there's a real threat of people losing their life. And so it's the same situation, risk and benefit balance. It's when you look at the risk of doing nothing, or let me say this another way, the risk of waiting. There is a risk of waiting to get to complete all of the phase 3 trials. The risk of waiting until all of the phase 3 is completed is that more and more people die. There is a risk of the vaccine that's like, well, could it potentially cause some inflammatory reaction? I don't think so, because like you would have seen that already. If you provide a vaccine, you start it in animal trials and go to humans, like you would have seen immediate reaction. Is there any other vaccines that has developed long-term side effects that we are unaware of, right? Could there be something like that? To date, there's not a single vaccine that has resulted in long-term complications. And we can look to the MMR and say, hey, look, like MMR, there was that one study from the Lancet trial that found measles vaccines in the gut of this one person who, by the way, we found out later that they really didn't have autism. And so like, no, like we have enough research, even with the MMR vaccine, that it does not cause measles. It does not cause autism. We have an abundant amount of information that these vaccines do not have long-term complications. And so there's not an example. There are vaccines that, for example, like the influenza vaccine, we know that can cause Guillain-Barré. Interestingly, with Guillain-Barré disease, if you just look it up if you're really interested in seeing what Guillain-Barré is, right? What's interesting about Guillain-Barré disease is that influenza itself, the virus, causes Guillain-Barré. Right, so it might be like, oh, I'm screwed if I do, if I'm screwed if I don't. No, these are like with influenza specifically. I mean, it's a very, very low risk illness, and if you're like, well, no risk is, so you might be saying like, well, I don't want any risk. Well, if that's the case, then like don't drive, right? So like we are willing to take some amount of risk, like driving, in order to be able to like benefit from getting a job. Right. So like you do that every single day. And I got lots of opinions about driving too. We'll do that for another episode. And so now what most people are concerned about is like, well, that's great, Dr. Sanchez. Doctors, they're willing to like, they're already, putting their life out there and risking it for the public. Nurses, the same thing. They're already risking their life. And so they're just used to like risking their life for other people, and getting a vaccine is just like the same thing. So we get that y'all are just like these superheroes, but like for normal people, I'm not a superhero, and I don't want the risk of getting a vaccine. Well, that's okay, because it's not your turn. It's not your turn. Like by the time, like probably next April, by the time the vaccine gets to the general population, sometime in April, like will normal people get it, then like it's already probably would have completed phase 3 trials. You will not be the first one in line to get it. And I hear that all the time. Like, well, I'm not going to be the first one in line. Look, you're probably like, I don't know, 100,000 person in line. The first people in line were those who were phase 1 trials. I mean, they were the one first in line, and then you got like second line, second phase, and third phase, and then final physician. So I'm like fifth in line. Like I'm fifth in line. I'm not like first in line. So by the time it gets to you, it'll probably be 7, 8, 9, 10th in line, and by then there's enough information. Okay. All right. So let's say I think that it may cause some achiness, etc. Make you feel like a little ill. So like that's a man. Like it's gonna be like, I'm sorry, but like we're in a pandemic. I am willing to like just take the vaccine and just feel bad for one day. Like I will own it if it means that I am protected and also that I protect other people, which is probably the priority, by the way, right? And so if it makes you feel bad, imagine what the real virus would do. That is my like, I mean, I guess with the flu vaccine, I guess I'm getting a little kind of, I don't know, I got an opinion, right? I'm trying to be nice about it, but today for some reason it's come across as being a little annoyed. But like with the flu vaccine, I'm like, if you feel bad from the flu vaccine, imagine what it would feel like to get the real thing. All right, let's talk about details of the actual vaccine itself, okay? So with normal vaccines, there's two types. Like with normal vaccines, there's the live virus, and then also there's the what's called the attenuated virus. So with the live vaccine, there's not a whole lot. So like shingles, well, the old vaccine for shingles vaccine, and now it's attenuated. There's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of live vaccines out there anymore, so the most of the vaccines these days are what's called attenuated, meaning that you take the virus, you kill it, and like I equate it to like your immune system being kind of like the what do you call it? That dog the dog that's able to smell really well and then can identify things. I forgot the name of the dog. So that dog, it's like that's like your immune system, and you like give like, hey, look, here's a dead duck. This is what it smells like. Now go find the real one. Like go find the living one. And that's what our immune system does. You offer it the dead virus. Your immune system kind of smells it and says, oh, look, that's a bad thing, and gives it the ability to fight off the real virus. So you never really get like the vaccine with the flu does not. You don't inject like live vaccine into people. You don't. This is like dead vaccine. It's called attenuated. Okay, now this vaccine is different. It really is. It's an mRNA vaccine. What the hell is that? So mRNA you kind of have to understand how like viruses normally do. So normally viruses, when you get infected with the virus, it has mRNA, or sometimes DNA, but typically it's mRNA. When it gets into your body, it gets transcribed into regular DNA, and it actually implants into your own DNA, which is kind of weird to know that like your own DNA is being like occupied, integrated with a virus. It's kind of weird, but in this case, it would, and then your own body will start to actually, your own body starts replicating the virus itself, because we have the machine work to make copies of the proteins and actually recreate the actual virus in abundance. And that's how it spreads. And so instead of giving you the whole copy, you can't, it's really hard to do that anyway. It's hard enough to even get just one piece of the RNA, to let alone the whole virus. So we don't give in the vaccine. It's just the piece of the RNA that is the information for like a surface protein. Like, so on the surface, which is really where the money's at. So on the surface, they have these little molecules that are specific for that virus. And so, but those molecules, those surface proteins in and of themselves are not able to kill anybody. You have to have the whole virus intact to be able to like cause COVID infection. So what's interesting is that you can't inject the actual like surface protein. You can't isolate the protein and just inject that itself. It just kind of degrades. It's not easy to like do that. So instead, it takes the mRNA, which is the information that codes for that surface protein, and that's what we're injecting to people for the vaccine. And so that piece of the mRNA, which is not the whole virus RNA, is just the like surface molecule RNA, which is not able to cause infection at all. So you inject that into people, that gets inserted into our own DNA, and then you start replicating not the whole virus, you replicate just the surface protein, and that is able to initiate your immune system to recognize a foreign molecule, the foreign protein, as viral, and it will be able to therefore kind of like help the immune system say, hey, look, this is what it looks like to have COVID. This is not COVID, but like the next time you get COVID, then you'll be able to fight it off more effectively. I mean, it's genius, to be honest with you. I mean, these are like close to miracles, right? Like I will say that you kind of have to like trust the system a lot, because this is the first time to have mRNA to be the form of vaccine we're getting is the first of its kind. You're like, oh, well, I don't want to get it then. Well, that's fine, because you know what? You're not going to get it. You're not getting it right now, right? We'll complete phase 3 trials. And we have like medical breakthroughs all the time. Like in the cancer world, we have this thing called immunotherapy, right? So like first of its kind, it's never, and these are life-saving treatments. So like when someone has cancer, it's interesting. Like when you've got cancer, you really like, man, I'll take it, because cancer's scary, right? Because it's life and death. There's this psychological thing that occurs in people that if it's like, if you have or at risk of getting some kind of illness, you just seems to be more, okay with getting treatment compared to like maybe the COVID illness. And so like, I think that there is enough evidence to say that it's safe. I'm going to get the vaccine. When time comes, I'm going to get it. And I'll make blogs about it, and I'll go ahead and say, hey, like this is how I'm feeling day 1, day 2, etc. This is what it's like. But whatever achiness I get, right? Whatever, like I feel ill, whatever, it is so much better than having the real COVID. And the thing is that like when I get the vaccine, I'm protecting other people. And that's what's really important, is that like when I get sick, when I get the vaccine, I'm going to be able to protect other people, and we can actually be done with this. We can save our economy, right? We can save our economy. Combined with wearing masks, if we are able to do the vaccine, and we just need like 50% of the public, right? Well, the number for herd immunity is going to be around 70%. So 70% of the population likely needs to be immunized, because it's 95% effective for the individual, but like for the public, if 70% of the population gets the vaccine, then we really do have herd immunity. I mean, even if we just get 50% and we still like are aggressive about wearing masks, right? So like we're dedicated, we're committed, we could really get a handle of this, and this COVID thing can be of the past. We can save our economy, we can save lives. It's positive all around. I don't see any negatives, and I think that it's a kind of a patriotic duty in my mind. When I get the vaccine, it's like being an American to serve other people, right? So like that's the patriotic spirit in America, to rise up and to say, hey, I'm willing to do what it takes to protect my fellow Americans, to protect and to serve, right? And so it's an honor to be able to get the vaccine. And it's really a miracle, to be honest with you. So I'll have more to say once phase 3 trials get completed. But like, know that it's not for you. It's going to be like whenever the vaccine comes around in the mid-December, it's going to be for healthcare workers, and also like security guards and that work at hospitals, as well as like people who clean the hospital as well, right? So like everybody who works in the hospital will like pharmacists as well. I mean, they'll need to get it, right? And then it'll go out to the outpatient setting, meaning like in the clinics that the doctors give it. So a lot of people say, well, when the COVID vaccine comes around, like how is it going to be provided? How are people going to get it? So like they come in these big freezers, because it has to be like negative million degree temperatures. It has to be freaking cold. So my understanding is they're shipping them, or the freezers are being shipped. And so we don't have to like get our own freezers, is my understanding. And so, I mean, you're probably going to have to, as of now, what I hear is that it's going to be given through pharmacies as well as through like clinics, most likely, community centers. I mean, the more access points to this vaccine, the better. And that's how it should be done. The way it should be done is that there needs to be multiple points of availability to be able to get the vaccine. So what do I think about people who just won't get it? I mean, I don't know. I'm already used to people who like are hard-headed. A lot of people don't want to get their flu vaccine. I just do my best to educate people, and just know, like, I have my moral conscience, and like I did my best to like tell people, hey, this is good for you. This is not bad for you. There's anyway. So send your message. So before you push that like button on those who are watching the video. Go ahead and subscribe. And also, I'd like for you to like share it with others. I want to thank you so much for people who have really supported my channel, who have really been able to like be positive. I'm so thankful for people who have really liked this content and who have encouraged me. Give me ideas, send me a message through Medici. It's the app that I use is called Medici, the app that I use to send text messages to patients, and so to answer your questions. And if you have anything else, just let me know. And I'm really here for you guys. And I realize that this COVID pandemic has unleashed a lot of false information, a lot of fears, and I want to be able to do my part. And so my hope is that you would do your part as well. So if you could help me out by sharing this video, sharing this podcast called Ask a Doc Podcast, and so that I would be able to help as many people as possible through just trusted information. I'm a family medicine doctor and board certified. I've been doing this doctor thing now for a long time. And so hopefully you guys will be able to enjoy this. Give me ideas about content. And so we will talk next time. So let's see what happens, right? By next week, we'll definitely, by that point, we'll have more information from the FDA for the emergency use authorization. And maybe by then I might show you my little, my little Mickey Mouse Band-Aid for my for my back. Now I won't use Mickey Mouse, but anyway, all right. You guys have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.